and NDs. Mr. Shaukat Mirza is the ND from Bangladesh. He is going to present a case study. And Ms. Munasi is an ND representing Zimbabwe. In both these countries, CTCN has undertaken a number of technical assistance programs, and we would like to listen from them. I stop here and I hand it over to my colleagues. Do we have a presentation?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. I'm not too sure if the presentation was received or if I shall just proceed. All right, thank you. Good morning once again, and thank you for having me here. Great, okay. As was mentioned by Rajiv, I'm the NDE for Zimbabwe, and as he mentioned, we essentially provide guidance to project proponents as well as government entities on how to apply for technical assistance from the CTCN. And in this particular project, we're focusing on the development of green building standards for Zimbabwe, where we were able to facilitate this by request from the Ministry of National Housing, Ministry of Energy Efficiency and Power Development in Zimbabwe, as well as the Ministry of Social Amenities and Public Works. Next, please. So as Zimbabwe was developing its low-emission development strategy, a long-term greenhouse gas emission reduction strategy, we came to the realization that the energy sector contributes about 33% to our national greenhouse gas emissions. And of this 33%, 47% of this is attributed to electricity as well as heat generation for the built environment. And so we realized the need to then develop green building standards that take into consideration climate change needs so that we can mitigate our emissions within the sector, but then also in terms of building resilience, because essentially we also experience a number of climate and weather-related extremes, such as floods and cyclones and so forth. And so in Zimbabwe, actually, our current building bylaws are a bit outdated. They haven't been updated since 1973, which was a major challenge in terms of guiding, future development of whether residential, commercial, industrial buildings. And so it was really, this was seen as a big opportunity for us to then tap into the opportunities provided by the CTCN. I think some of the other issues that we were facing in terms of addressing some of the challenges, we had limited financial as well as institutional resources to kind of kickstart the process of reviewing and amending our bylaws. We also have high pricing of green materials, so we're really also trying to focus on looking at context-specific and tailor-made solutions for Zimbabwe, where we can tap into our natural resources and natural materials that we have within the country that will then not increase our costs for our citizens. Maybe one other issue that we realized is that we have overlapping mandates in terms of government entities, in terms of building infrastructure and so forth. So this was a good opportunity for us to then convene various ministries as well as entities together, capacitate them on what the requirements are in terms of in line with the projections for climate change projections and scenarios specific to Zimbabwe and what we need to put into place. Next, please. Also standing guided by Zimbabwe's revised NDC, we do make provision for mitigation measures within the built environment, where we've said we want to have energy efficiency of up to 16% for commercial buildings and 22% for residential buildings. And as it stands, we do have some policies in place which also try to support this transition to development of green buildings, such as our draft energy efficiency policy as well as our renewable energy policy. But this project will also provide us the opportunity to come with concrete and tailor-made specific regulatory frameworks as well as guidelines for 3 building types actually. And so under this project, next please, we'll mainly be focusing on residential buildings, commercial buildings, as well as your workspaces and office buildings. And the project will be running over 1.5 years. As I mentioned, the project proponents earlier on. Next, please. And so we aim to then also introduce effective mechanisms for their operationalization. Next slide, please. So maybe some of the main deliverables that we'll be focusing on are looking at the assessment of these building types. I think to date, the consultants that have been brought on board have been able to identify representative buildings. So in low, medium, as well as high density areas, we're also focusing on not just, how can I say, 2-story and 1-story buildings. We're also looking at high-rise buildings as well, and how these, and basically doing a walkthrough audit, because we also realized, I think through the baseline scoping phase, that there's not actually much information in terms of energy use and energy efficiency activities that have been carried out to date. So we want to do basically a comprehensive baseline study on that. Once we've been able to do that, we are then going to present maybe best practices from other countries such as Bangladesh as well. I think we've had some conversations with some of the consultants as well as the office from the ND in Bangladesh on certain interventions that we can implement, such as solar water heating and so forth. Once this has been done, we'll then develop the green building standards and as well as policy guidelines. And I think one other key step is to then bring on board the various experts and stakeholders that are responsible for implementing. So we're looking at convening our architects, our engineers, our construction workers, and capacitating them on these building standards as well as policy guidelines. There also will be an MV&E framework to check our progress throughout the implementation of these as well as development of user manuals. So in as much as I'd like to talk about the good things that we're doing, I think it's also important for me to highlight some of the barriers that and challenges that we've come across to date since the commencement of the project. So in terms of the walkthrough audits, it hasn't been that easy in terms of collecting the data. There is need for a lot of integrated and support from government entities, our ministries, departments, as well as our agencies, as well from national down to subnational level. And so for now, in as much as we have tried to carry out inception workshops and various technical and steering committee workshops and groups, we are still having some issues in terms of provision of this data. So I think we're trying to convene once again at a much higher level, to appraise our principals, which is our ministers, our permanent secretaries, and probably have that information cascaded down to technical level so that the importance of this project as well as the outcomes of the deliverables will be implemented and then sustainable. So I think I'll pause there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mukono Weshuro. I will now hand over to Mr. Mirza to present a case study from Bangladesh.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the floor. I'll just try to share what we are doing at the moment on CityCN. So our Department of Environment is the ND in Bangladesh for collaboration with CityCN. So far we have implemented 3 projects and one more project is ongoing at the moment. So the first project was saline water purification for households, and the second component of the same technical assistance was low-cost durable housing technology for coastal areas of Bangladesh. It was actually completed 4 or 5 years back, and basically on low-cost durable housing, we haven't followed that design yet because it was a little bit more expensive. So with the support of UNEP, we have come up with a customized design again, and we are working on a NDC support project, and we have piloted 2-3 buildings in our coastal areas, and hopefully in the near future we'll try to replicate that in the coastal areas of Bangladesh. And at the moment, I am the project director of one project which we call Climate Change Initiative in Coastal Small Islands and Riverine Shorelands in Bangladesh. And we are expecting to construct 900 houses, climate resilient houses in those areas. And we probably will follow that housing design in the future. Regarding the saline water purification for households, we actually got the support of Gloria and Tech from Korea, and they, after piloting, actually they have come up with a CDM project, and already 2 projects is another company, Gloria and Tech and another company, they're implementing 2 saline water purification projects in our coastal areas. And this project has already been registered under the CITIES, under the CDM Executive Board at the UNFCCC. The other technology assistance, technical assistance that we have access from CTCN is assessing the geomorphological change in the coastal areas of Bangladesh, which is also supported by DHI, Danish Hydraulic Institute. We have completed that project recently, but I'm not going to speak on that. I'm going to speak about the other project that we are now implementing. So this is the project is like developing a framework for real-time transport information system for public transport in Greater Dhaka. So you can see in the presentation, this is not my presentation, actually I have got this from Korean colleagues, and I just want to show a few slides on that. So we are considering to introduce this bus information management system in our Dhaka city. You know, Dhaka is very crowded, and there are about 20 million population in Dhaka, and government has taken different initiatives, and under our NDC we have estimated that we should be able to reduce 27% of the emission from the transport sector, and which stands at 9.72 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent by 2030. And for that we are implementing mass rapid transit, bus rapid transit, and other parallel overpasses in major section of the urban areas. And we recently have signed a contract with Korean company to supply 250 buses to Bangladesh Road Transport Corporation, and we are considering to pilot this with those buses. Although the amount necessary for this piloting will be difficult to get from Korean government, but at least for 10 to 15 buses we are trying to replicate this, as the buses are coming within next 3 months. So next slide, please. Oh, sorry, I can do it. So you see, this is basically the concept that in the bus stops and in the bus there will be devices, and people can access those information through their mobile, and then they can plan their movement accordingly. So time will be saved, and I mean man-hour and emission reduction hopefully will be reduced. So we are considering to changes like governance, operator, bus stop, bus routes, vehicle, electrical infrastructure, communication. Actually, there are a lot of work that need to be done, but under the CTCN technical assistance that cannot be implemented. So this is just a concept that where we need to change these activities. So in the implementation scenario, you can see there are pilot A and pilot B activities. So we are considering to pilot in 340 buses and 50 bus stoppages in BRT corridor. That is the small piloting that we are considering. And for that piloting, we are considered the $5 to $7 million will be necessary if we pilot in pilot A with 340 vehicles. So at the moment, Korean National University of Transport, they're providing the support, and they're almost at the final stage of implementing that project. And we are discussing with other development partners to provide, to get support so that we can implement this project in Bangladesh. So this is in short the activities that we are taking in Bangladesh with the support of CTCN. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mirza. And as someone who's spent quite a bit of time in Dhaka, I'm really looking forward to the new buses. I would like to hand over now to my colleagues Anya Vanderop and Shinar Tabrizi from WIPO to walk us through some of WIPO's work on making the marketplace for green technology more transparent and more accessible to all entities who need to access it. Anya, over to you.
Thank you, Amy. So as Amy said, we're engaged in supporting both development and dissemination of green technology. And I want to shed a bit of light on one of the practical tools for implementation. That is the WIPO Green database. And that could also be used in two ways. One is to learn more about available green technologies, their features, and who provides them. And the other aspect is to use it as a sourcing tool in procurement, because there are studies also or experiences that show that first of all, having the requirements clear for any sustainable criteria are important, but also then engaging early on in the process with potential providers, that could be helpful. So if we have the slides, in any case, we cover the next one. Is the clicker, we cover all areas of clean tech or green tech. From a city's perspective, there might be almost all of them relevant, ranging from energy, water, maybe not so much farming, forestry, but pollution and waste and transportation for sure, and then also building and constructions. So the registration in that marketplace is free, and as is the upload of either technologies or needs. We have now around or close to 130,000 entries, which covers both technology offers, information on patents, and then also needs, which is the formulation of either an environmental or climate change challenge, and also experts that could help in the process. There's, with all those different entries, there's AI-based search functions that are available, but then there's also automated matchmaking in case of sort of technologies. You can see respective needs, or if you have needs, you can see sort of corresponding technologies. This is how it looks like for the simple keyword search. And then you have different filters, so by type of entry, sort of you can filter the patent information, you can filter technologies or needs, and you can also filter obviously by the different categories. And then there's more to see where a technology has been developed or where it has been deployed in case a provider has provided that information, but then also what type of collaboration a provider might be looking for, because that can be quite different depending on the stage of technology, and then also whether there's funding needed or not. This is how a sample technology looks like, but Shana, my colleague, will talk about more sample technologies. But that's a user upload. You can see also then if, again, the technology provider has given that information, you can link to the website and find more information. But you can also contact a provider and then get more information and start discussion. This is a sample need that is for collecting carbon emissions or carbon footprint in logistics. That is from China, just as a sample of someone who has formulated a challenge that they would like to solve and get corresponding solutions. This feature is related to what I mentioned before, the patent information. Well, those of you who are familiar know that patent information doesn't necessarily equal a commercialized solution, because it might be early in the process that the patent has been sought. But we have also integrated a search function into the marketplace that gives you more information on potentially commercially available solutions corresponding to a patent. And this is an example of a match that we have facilitated that comes again from China. That is from a hotel complex that was looking for a composting facility and have found one composting facility also through the marketplace. And another example I want to give is building a residential building block that with the rising numbers of electric vehicles had problems with the charging system, and found a charging system through our services. And with that I already end, but I'm happy to answer additional questions and hand over to my colleague. 7 minutes.
And maybe if we can get the next presentation, and I'll start presenting. Oh, okay. Oh, great. Hello, good morning. For almost 2 years now, but in reality much longer, WIPO and WIPO Green has been systematically identifying and documenting more than 600 climate technologies for both adaptation and mitigation. And we have done so through the Green Technology Book. And we, of course, acknowledge that we need, there's no technology that is a silver bullet solution. We need enabling policies, we need finances, we need capacity building. But we do think, or we do know that innovation and technology are a key part of the puzzle, as it touches upon every aspect of our lives. So it goes way beyond the energy issue at the moment. And so the Green Technology Book is a WIPO flagship digital-first publication that looks at adaptation and mitigation in various sectors. Often we find that climate technology information is fragmented and not always curated. So we aim to address this challenge in terms of being able to identify the right solution for the local context and bringing it all together. And we've packaged it through different key sectors, such as agriculture, industry, cities, and water and coastal regions. And the first edition was launched last year at COP27. It has so far had nearly 1 million unique views and around close to 30,000 downloads. And this year we have focused on climate mitigation in industry, cities, and we've also looked at agriculture and land use. And we don't know yet how these visitors are using the Green Technology Book, but the idea is really for users to see it as inspiration when mapping their climate technology needs, whether it be at national level or city level or down to farmer level, but also as a resource to identify specific technologies to license, import, or procure, And this is mainly possible because it's linked to the online database that Anja mentioned that has more than 120,000 solutions. And here you can find the contact information to each technology provider, be it an organization or company or an individual person. So really that makes it a matchmaking platform to connect decision makers, businesses, and investors. But also we see it as a tool to build capacity on climate technology trends and innovation, as the book also does include such analysis. So we're looking now into how we can repackage this as possibly as educational material for schools and universities as well. In both of the editions, the adaptation and mitigation edition, cities are a key focus area. This year we focus on heating and cooling, mobility, and material efficiency and waste management, a very, very important topic in cities that I'll get to later as well. And I also want to mention that the Green Technology Book was developed together with our partners, the CTCN and the Egyptian Academy of Scientific Research and Technology. So this is what it looks like in the database, the collections where you will see majority of the technologies gathered for adaptation and mitigation. You can browse through the different chapters, and when you go on a deeper level, this is, for example, an overview of the mobility section where all the individual technologies are listed. And really it's mainly about the individual solutions themselves. And in mapping all of these 600 technologies, one of the sort of key lessons learned were that we really need to be able to view climate technologies not in silos, but more from a systems perspective. I think when you look at the impact of many climate technologies, you may see that we're having some progress on a lot of technologies in some sectors. For instance, electric vehicles are really booming in some cities. The price of lithium-ion batteries have been reduced by 90% since 2010. But at the same time, we're seeing a huge trend towards fuel-consuming SUVs. And larger cars consume more fuel. And so this is, this growth in SUVs is accounting for almost a third of the growth in oil demand. So it means that we really need a broad range of climate technology solutions in the mobility sector, for example. And so we have gathered for the mobility chapter, solutions that look into how the technology innovation play a role for increasing public transport in cities. It looks at innovations in materials. So for example, lightweighting of cars, making cars lighter and thereby consuming less fuel. It looks at intelligent traffic management systems. So really it inspires us to use all the tools that we have to reduce emissions on a sector basis. The same goes, I think one of the most important or more interesting chapters in the book is the one on material efficiency and waste management, because I think that is often overlooked when we look at emissions in cities. Cities are resource intensive. I think cities account for 2% of the global land, but they consume 75% of our resources, and resource use is set to double by 2050. And this means emissions. And oftentimes when we look at technologies for emission reduction in cities, we think of waste management. But we have also in the Green Technology Book gathered solutions that help us avoid waste in the first place. And so I think this can be, I encourage you to look through the Green Technology Book, browse through the different solutions, upload your own solutions if you have them, or needs. And the next edition will be launched tomorrow in the side event room 6 at 3 p.m. And with that, I hand over to Amy.
Thank you so much, Shinar and Anja. So in the remaining 5 minutes, I would love to ask each of our panelists. So we've heard for the past 45 minutes about the importance of innovation and technology in achieving these incremental and in some cases even leapfrogging improvements. And as parting thoughts, I would really love to hear from each of you. What do you think we need to actually be affecting major paradigm shifts? Because I think while we need to speak about incremental improvements and even leapfrogging improvements, I think we also need to keep our eye on these big paradigm shifts. And the example I'll use here is, okay, yes, using fewer traditional cars and shifting over to electric vehicles. that's an improvement. But what we really need is fewer drivers and fewer cars. So can I please hear from each of you what in your mind are the major paradigm shifts that we need to keep an eye on while we are also increasing access to technology and knowledge to really help these incremental improvements? Let's start with Shinar and let's finish with Rajiv.
Thanks. I think we need to, well, in the context of cities, listen more on what the demands are on the ground. When we developed the Green Technology book, we spoke to, for example, colleagues who works a lot on city level with decision makers, and they noticed that the innovation that we're seeing to meet many of these challenges that are coming now are not always meeting the demands of the cities. So, for instance, we see a lot of innovation in driverless cars and a lot of attention being placed on future technologies, but the demands, they were saying, from the city level were more in terms of vehicle grid integration, as we see a growing number of electric cars on the roads. And so I think more cross-sector collaboration between innovators and city-level officials to be able to match the level of innovation we see with the demand on the ground.
So I think procurement is really a big handle and sort of integrating sustainability principles into the procurement processes. And also sort of considering not just the short-term costs, but the long-term costs. In the long-term costs, the technologies, the green technologies or sustainable technologies might be, or many of them are lower in the maintenance. So to take those kind of costs into consideration when carrying out procurement.
Okay, I think one of the major issues that we face, especially in terms of these type of, new age, innovative type of projects, especially in developing countries such as Zimbabwe, is the transition time from start of implementation to actually seeing, real meaningful impact. So I think from the onset, we need to take into consideration multidimensional as well as mosaic, maybe program-based interventions. Then also maybe linking these interventions to some of the key socioeconomic sectors within the country. Also linking these to low-hanging fruits that can be recognized by the end users and at such a lower level as subnational as well as household level. I think if we do this, then I think our interventions will take up more.
Yeah, it's quite a very difficult question because, as I said in my opening statement, each solution would have a different setting. Each city would have a different setting. But definitely what we feel in the CTCN is the world is moving more and more towards adoption of digital technologies. And technologies like, Internet of Things, which can control the energy consumption of your building, means of your appliances, is going to rise. Means we have already seen that cities promoting and using more and more solar PVs, and now we have seen cities, they are just not using this electricity generated for their own purpose, but they are also connected to the grid and transferring it back to the grid. So all of these buildings have started becoming a kind of a mini generating stations in itself, and so what we foresee is, for a gain of efficiency, more and more use of digital technologies are going to come or to be used more and more in the cities, specifically modern cities which are coming up at a very fast rate.
Shinar, Anya, Munashi, Rajiv, and Mr. Mirza in his absence, thank you so much for being with us. We are finishing up bang on time after starting 15 minutes late, so I'm quite proud of that small achievement. Thanks, everyone. Please help yourselves. Our Bangladeshi colleague has left apparently some bags for distribution.